I was bullied. The bullies threatened to go to my house. I begged them not to go because they didn't know that I was the only normal person in the family. My father is a serial killer, my mother is a sickly woman, and my brother is an antisocial person. Only I am a pitiful little white flower. I returned home with a heavy heart, and it was my father who opened the door for me. He was wearing an apron and smiled very gently. Are you hungry? Dad prepared some snacks for you. The smile on his face became more and more intense, but I felt a chill. Dad's apron was stained with mottled blood, and the blood was very fresh, obviously just splashed up. Dad looked down with my horrified eyes, and then smiled. I accidentally stained my apron again, and your mother will scold me later. I took off my shoes, trembling lie, and walked into the house. A young woman was tied to the chair. The woman's hair was messy, her face was covered with blood, and her upper and lower lips were sewn together with thread. When she saw me coming in, she whimpered excitedly and looked at me for help. I shuddered and looked away. This auntie left her daughter, who was less than 5 years old, outside and went to fool around with a man. That poor child was crushed into a bloody mess by a car. How painful must he have been when he was alive? Dad said softly. I sat stiffly on the sofa, not daring to look over there. After a while, a shrill scream rang out. The woman's painful screams lasted for more than 10 minutes before gradually disappearing. Dad took off his glasses, wiped the blood on the lenses, smiled and said to me, Ran, next, Dad will cut this auntie into pieces, which may be a bit disgusting. You go back to your room. After getting permission, I ran back to the room quickly, and Dad sighed behind me. I heard him mutter, this child's temper is not like ours at all. At this moment, my legs were already weak and shaking, and my whole body was covered with cold sweat. This is not the first time I have seen my father kill someone. The first time he killed someone in front of me, I was only 5 years old. My father cut a man's throat alive in front of my horrified eyes. He said that this man had abused his wife for many years, causing his wife to jump off the building and commit suicide. But the man was not punished at all, so he wanted to punish him personally. I took a deep breath and finally calmed down. But what made me most nervous was that the group of people who bullied me every day would come to my house tomorrow night. When I thought of their faces, my stomach was cramped. I had obviously begged them many times not to come to my house, but they grabbed my hair, slapped me a few times, and said with a smile, I want to see what kind of family would raise a bug like you. But they didn't know at all that no one who went to my house came out alive. There was a knock on the door outside, and I opened the door. My mother was standing outside. My mother has a very harmless and beautiful face, but only I know how scary she is. My mother smiled and stared at me as I took off my clothes. Mom, I looked at her, almost begging lie, but I still trembled and took off my clothes, revealing my body covered with scars of all sizes. Who did it, huh? Mom's smile became more and more intense, but only I knew that Mom was very angry now. When she got angry, she liked to do terrible things. When I was 5 years old, a little boy in kindergarten grabbed a handful of heroin. The boy disappeared the next day. The news said that he accidentally fell from the upstairs and died, but only I knew that the lollipop that the boy clenched in his hand before he died was the one that Mom liked to buy for me the most. When I was in elementary school, the female teacher in my class thought I was a child from a poor family and often deliberately mocked me. Obviously, I was on duty with my desk mate, but she always assigned the dirtiest and most tiring work to me. Seeing me fall in the toilet with a heavy bucket, the female teacher laughed. I didn't dare to tell my family. Although I hated this female teacher, I didn't want my family to do bad things. But this matter was still known by my perceptive mother. Not long after, I saw the news of the teacher's death on the news. She was tortured to death by several thugs when she returned home at night, and her hands and feet were broken alive. When I saw the photos of those thugs, my blood seemed to freeze because I was clearly near my home and saw my mother talking and laughing with them. My mother's cold fingers touched my wounds, and my thoughts were pulled back, and I shuddered. My mother sighed softly. Sometimes I really doubt, are you really my child? I looked at her face and said nothing because I knew that I was indeed not their biological child. I have been soft-tempered since I was a child, and I cry easily. I remember the cat I raised when I was a child accidentally ran out when I opened the door. When I found it, it had been tortured to death by someone I didn't know. One of the cat's legs was sawed off alive, and even one of its eyes was dug out. I cried so hard that I was out of breath. My brother couldn't bear it anymore. He said to me coldly, "You don't want him to continue suffering, right?" I nodded with tears in my eyes. The next second, I saw my brother twist the kitten's neck. The sound of the bones breaking was clear, but I clearly remember that the corners of my brother's mouth were slightly raised. Later, my father checked the surveillance and saw that the cat was tortured by two boys from the same community. We found the parents of the two boys, but they said nonchalantly, "Isn't it just a local cat? We will compensate you no matter how much money you have." Call the police? Don't be ridiculous. Our child is only 14 years old. And to be honest, it was you who accidentally let the cat escape. I haven't even told you that your cat scared my child. The boy poked his head out from behind his mother and laughed arrogantly and viciously. "Mom, it was that cat that scratched us first." The woman snorted coldly. "Did you hear that? I haven't asked you for money yet, but you came to me first. Who knows if the cat you raised has me rabies virus?" I was so angry that tears, though I saw in the surveillance that they deliberately stepped on Xiaomi's tail, so Xiaomi scratched deals. The boy said that scratches people should be killed. I want it killed. I rushed him and ang bong from one. My brother helped me up and said lightly, "That's right. If you deal with a beast that catches people, you have to kill it." There was an extreme coldness in his tone. My parents didn't say anything, but just smiled at the woman and her child. The woman seemed to have never met parents like my parents, and she didn't argue with him, and even her expression didn't change. He drove us away with a guilty conscience. A few nights later, I woke up crying unwanted to go to the kitchen to drink some water. The door opened and I saw my brother walked in. His face was dim in the dark, and I smelled a faint smell of blood. There was a glaring scarlet on my brother's coat. "Brother, what did you do?" I asked, trembling lie, although I already had a very scary association in my heart. He grinned. "Brother went to deal with some beast that would catch people." The next day, many police came to our community. It turned out that the two boys were cut open alive last night, and their intestines were all over the floor. "This is my family. They seem to love me, but they make me feel scared." Mom pinched my face and said, "What are you thinking about?" Mom was just saying it casually. "You are my baby after 10 months of pregnancy." Ruin. Mom got a letter from the mailbox. "It's for you." Mom took out the envelope. I opened the envelope in confusion, and then my pupils shrank and my whole body spazzed. There was a photo inside. In the photo, I was stepped on the belly like a miserable dog. Those who bullied me poured glue on my head. They laughed very happily. I still remember what they said. "Bitch doesn't deserve such beautiful hair." The pain of being stepped on the belly by high heels seemed to be vivid. There was a sentence written on the back of the photo: "We are very much looking forward to coming to Ruin's home to see the life of the bitch family." At the end, there was a very cute smiley face. Cold sweat oozed from my forehead. I subconsciously wanted to hide the photo behind me, but Mom didn't give me a chance to hide. She easily took the photo from me. I looked at her anxiously, but her expression remained unchanged, still with a faint smile on her face. Ruin, are these injuries on your body caused by them? You cut your hair without telling me before. Is it because of them?" I nodded nervously, trembling, and put my cheek on her hand. "Mom, please. I can transfer to another school. We can also tell the teacher. I will ask them not to come. Don't do anything to them." I was like a poor little animal making a weak plea to my mother when I made my mother angry in the past. I just needed to use this trick and she would forgive me. Mom smiled. Her two dark eyes stared at me. Ruin. Although Mom likes you to act like a spoiled child, it's useless to act like a spoiled child this time. Didn't Mom tell you that we should be enthusiastic to treat guests? How can we turn them away? Mom touched my face lovingly and whispered softly in my ear, "We will definitely prepare the most grand and unforgettable night for them." My body cooled down little by little after hearing what my mother said. I had a nightmare at night. In my dream, I went back to when I was 8 years old. I stood barefoot in the living room. It was dark and the lights were off. There was a crack in my parents' room, and a faint light seeped out from it. I heard their conversation. I walked over curiously with the baby in my arms. I don't know if it's right or wrong to take this child back. Do you regret it? Not really, but I think this child's temper. If I don't like him anymore, I'll just kill him. Anyway, there will be more than one corpse in our garden. A chill ran from my feet to my limbs. At the age of 8, I felt as if I had fallen into an icy hell. Suddenly, the room fell into silence. My parents' faces slowly poked out from the door. They smiled in unison, staring at me, and said, "Children who eavesdrop on your parents' conversation are bad kids." I woke up suddenly, sweating all over my body. A conversation I overheard when I was 8 years old has become my nightmare, like a rope wrapped around my neck. I don't know when this rope will be tightened. I am not their biological child, so my personality is nothing like theirs. If my parents are unhappy one day, I will be killed, just like those people my father killed, having my throat cut, watching my blood spurt out, and waiting for death in despair. Suddenly, I caught a glimpse of the door of the room from the corner of my eye, and it was actually ajar. I was shocked. I clearly locked the door before going to bed. A figure stood quietly in the darkness, and I recognized the outline of the pair of high-end and exquisite leather shoes. "Brother," I trembled and spoke. My brother walked out of the darkness. He was usually very busy with work and rarely came home. I haven't seen him for almost 3 months. He looked down at me condescendingly, and his handsome face showed no emotion. "Why are you back, brother?" I forced a smile in this family compared to my parents. My brother actually scares me the most, because every night when he was at home, no matter how many times I locked the door, I would wake up from nightmares every day to see my brother sitting by my bed with an expressionless face, staring at me intently. He raised his hand and touched my ear. My brother's fingers were very cold. I shivered and held back the discomfort in my heart, but I did not show any resistance because I knew that the more I resisted, the more excited he would be. "Mom called me and said that your classmates would come to play at home tomorrow and asked me not to be absent." My body gradually stiffened and my back tightened. "Our family has to be neat and tidy to entertain guests, right? Ruin. He chuckled and pinched my ear, and "I miss you." My brother slowly took off his coat. He sat beside my bed and stared at me like a greedy, venomous snake. Why can't Ruin hug her brother like she hugs an Eddie Bear? My brother's eyes were extremely dark, and he spoke in a low and hoarse voice. His voice was very nice, with a unique hoarse temperament, but I just felt cold all over my body. "Brother, I want to sleep. Can you leave?" I murmured with a pale face. My brother stared at me for a long time, and finally he dropped a gentle kiss on my forehead. "Good night, Ruin." He got up and walked out of the room. I grabbed the quilt tightly, pulled the quilt over my head, and curled up in it. He knew he didn't leave. He was just pretending to leave because there was always a sticky and cold gaze on me. When I woke up again, it was already morning. I fell asleep in a daze last night. I went to the bathroom and washed up briefly. The person in the mirror had a face that was too weak and pale. I took a deep breath and said to myself, today, I must stop them from coming home no matter what. There were a few more black garbage bags in the corner of the living room, bulging. I could even smell the faint, fishy smell coming from those garbage bags. I felt sick in my stomach. I knew what was in them without having to guess. But what puzzled me was that the number of garbage bags seemed to be wrong. There were much fewer than before. Ruin, come and have breakfast. Dad made lean meat porridge for you." Dad was wearing an apron and smiling very brightly. There was a pot of steaming porridge on the dining table, and the air was filled with a strong, meaty aroma. My brother sat at the dining table in a suit and scooped a bowl of porridge gracefully. I sat at the table with a pale face, looking at the overly bright wheat floating in the porridge. This bee. I had a very bad association in my mind. My brother sipped the porridge, but smiled and said, Ruin, why don't you drink it?" Sure enough, the meat of young people is much more delicious than that of old people. The next moment, I couldn't bear it anymore and ran to the toilet to vomit. My mother's complaining voice rang out in the living room. "You kid, don't always joke with your sister. New and is timid, you know I bought this pork from the market early in the morning." Hearing my mother's words, I breathed a sigh of relief and sat down on the ground. I turned my head and met my brother's smiling eyes. I forgot that he liked to see me in a mess the most. I refused the driver's ride and took the bus to school in a daze. As soon as I entered the classroom, the pairs of eyes that scared me stared at me in unison, like a beast seeing its prey. I walked to my seat and easily sat down. As soon as I sat down, I felt something was wrong. A muffled laugh came from behind me. I wanted to stand up, but my skirt was stuck to the chair. There was a crisp sound of fabric being torn, and all the students turned their heads. My skirt was torn. No one laughed out loud, but the look in their eyes when they looked at me was full of ridicule. In an instant, my face turned extremely pale. Oh, who poured glue on Ruin's chair, making our Ruin look embarrassed? Come, put on my coat. Chusisi approached me intimately and gently put the coat on my lower body. I shrank in panic. Yang Li, change a new chair for Ruin. The tall and strong boy with a short, flat head responded readily and quickly changed the chair for me, but I saw a flash of malice in his eyes. Okay, Ruin, class is about to start. Sit down quickly. Chusisi pushed me down without saying anything. The next moment, a piercing pain came from the base of my thigh. I let out a short cry of pain and cold sweat instantly broke out on my forehead. Chusisi gently leaned against my arm and said in a voice that only the two of us could hear, Nuan, do you know? In ancient times, bitches were put into pig cages. But I think that's too cruel for you, so I stuck a lot of earth nails on your clothes. You must be grateful. I was in so much pain that I couldn't speak and could only sob. The class bell rang and Chusisi returned to her seat. I could feel the blood oozing from my skin, sticky and warm. The head teacher walked in, and when I looked up, my eyes met his. He saw my face that was almost bloodless because of the pain, but he quickly lowered his head and opened the textbook as if nothing had happened. In fact, I did look for the teacher. I told him. He said he would help me, and that day he also said he would have a good talk with me after school. The teacher's expression was very sincere, or maybe I was too anxious to ignore his slightly trembling hands and unnatural eyes. The teacher took me to a quiet private room, saying that he wanted to have a good conversation with me there. But the moment I entered the private room, I saw Chusisi and the others smiling very brightly. It was painful that day, but I got used to it. In a trance, I began to laugh at myself. I knew that Chusyi's father was a high-ranking official who donated a lot of money to this school, and no one dared to offend him. The pain made me more and more unbearable. I turned my head away, but I saw a familiar figure flashing outside the window. At this time, I couldn't bear the pain anymore and stood up all of a sudden. My desk mate exclaimed, "Your clothes are all covered in blood." Chusisi said in time, "Teacher, Ruan seems to be having her period. I'll take her to the toilet." "No, I can go by myself." The head teacher glanced at me and said coldly, "Let's easy take you with me." There were whispers in the class. I heard that Sungwon's family can't even afford sanitary napkins, so they all use paper towels. Ah, so disgusting. No wonder it's all blood. I opened my lips to argue, but finally lowered my head and said nothing. Chusisi fingernails with long nails dug into the flesh of my arm, causing pain. After she smiled and pulled me away from the classroom, she put away her smile and pushed me to the ground. I fell heavily to the ground. Chusisi looked down at me expressionlessly, and I looked up at her. When did it become like this? Many thoughts flashed through my mind in a chaotic manner. When I first transferred here, I wasn't bullied, and everyone was pretty friendly to me. This is an aristocratic school. Maybe it was because I took the bus to school every day, or maybe it was because I didn't fit in with them, or maybe it was because the senior that Chusisi had a crush on stopped me after school one day and said with a blushing face that he liked me. But I was clearly doing it for their own good. Those who wanted to be friends with me, unconfessed to me, suddenly disappeared one day. Because my brother once hugged me tightly and whispered to me like a lover, "I'm sorry, I'm really jealous." Why can they get Ruin's favor? Ruin has never really smiled at me. Suddenly, I felt a tingling sensation on my fingertips. Chusyi's small, fragrant leather shoes stepped on my fingertips. Ruin, I'm looking forward to visiting your house tonight. You must treat us well and make us happy. Chusyi's beautiful face was innocent and cruel. I looked at her for a long time and finally squeezed out a word numbly from my throat. Okay. Shu Cece was stunned. She didn't seem to think that I actually agreed. But soon, a more evil smile appeared on her face. I'm really looking forward to it. Yes, I'm really looking forward to it. After school, Chu Cece and the others were afraid that I would run away, so they surrounded me on the left and right. Outside the school gate, a white Maybach was parked, and a tall man was leaning against the car door. The moment I saw the man, my body instinctively hid back. It was my brother. Ruin, Ruin, I'm here to take you home, my brother said with a smile. I saw a flash of surprise in the eyes of Chu Cece and the other two. The smile on Chu Cece's lips became even stronger, and she whispered, Ruin, Ruin, why didn't you tell me that you have such a handsome brother? I was silent. Chu Cece walked forward very generously and introduced herself. Hello, brother. We are Ruin Ruin's good friends. My name is Chu Cece. Ruin Ruin invited us to play at home today. Brother raised his eyebrows and smiled. You are very welcome. When I wanted to sit in the copilot seat, Chu Cece pushed me away without leaving a trace. Ruin, Ruin, I feel a little uncomfortable. The front seat is more spacious. Brother, can I sit in the front? Of course. Brother replied with a smile. His eyes slowly moved down from Chu Cece's face and fell on Chu Cece's exposed white and straight legs. Chu Cece's face quickly flushed. Sue Ran pushed my shoulder and said maliciously, Hey, your brother likes Cece, right? Yes, he does. From what I know about him, he was clearly thinking about how to dismember these legs just now. You said that if you marry Cece in the future, then you will be a family. Ruin Ruin has Cece as your sister-in-law. You will definitely be very happy. Sue Ran leaned over and said in my ear. I knew he wanted to see my fear, but he was wrong. I turned my head and gave him a self-deprecating grin. Sue Ran was stunned. Chu Cece sat down on the passenger seat, but he soon jumped up with a scream. A trace of blood oozed from the root of her thigh, and a small thumbtack pierced her thigh. My brother showed just the right amount of surprise and apology. I'm sorry, how could there be a thumbtack here? I'll take you to the hospital first. Shusi's eyes were red from the pain, and she stared at her brother with a look of surprise and suspicion. I suddenly remembered the shadow that flashed by outside the window before, and my heart and it turned out that he had been watching me. My fingers tightly grasped my clothes, but my eyes happened to meet my brother's eyes in the rearview mirror. His eyes were slightly curved with obvious pleasure. I hurriedly looked away. We took Cece to the hospital. When she was treating the wound, she cried in pain and subconsciously grabbed her brother's clothes, but soon she let go in panic. I'm sorry. It's okay. This was my mistake, my brother said softly. Cece hooked her lips and turned to look at me with a proud look. My face was pale and my shoulders were shaking slightly. Sue Ran lowered his voice and said, Hey, are you afraid that your brother will be taken away by Cece? No. No, it would be great if you could really take him away. Before dealing with the prey, my brother would be surprisingly gentle. I was afraid. The biting fear enveloped my whole body. In a trance, I saw that the three people in front of me had turned into bones from the moment they got on the bus. They lost the chance to survive. They finally went home with me. Yang Li looked around and said in a shocked voice, Zhang Ruan, your family is not poor at all. Why you take the bus to school every day? I thought you were a poor guy. He didn't say the word poor after the word. I sneered in my heart. If they knew I was rich, they wouldn't bully me. Chusi's expression didn't change. He greeted my parents politely. Mom made a cup of coffee for everyone and said with a smile, Ruin Ruin actually has three good friends. I've never heard him mention you. Yang Li probably didn't expect my mother to be so young and beautiful. Her dark face turned red at this time. She looked like an ordinary boy who didn't know the world. I watched her reaction calmly, but I never forgot how cruel her expression was when she punched me in the stomach again and again. Yang Li took a sip of coffee and suddenly stared at the black plastic bag in the corner with curiosity. She asked, Uncle and Aunt, what's in it? I pinched the cup nervously, and my knuckles turned slightly white because of the force. Dad smiled slowly. You can go and see what it is. Yang Li actually stood up and walked towards the plastic bags. My heart was raised to the extreme and was beating fast. The smiles on my parents' faces became stronger and stronger. Yang Li opened the plastic bag and covered her mouth. It stinks. Is all this meat rotten, so disgusting? Yang Li took a few steps back in disgust. There were some bloody mincemeat in the plastic bag, and an unpleasant smell wafted out of the bag. Chu Zizi and Zhu Ran both frowned and subconsciously covered their noses. These are some minced meats left over from the vegetable market. I plan to feed them to stray dogs near the community. Dad explained with a smile. I breathed a sigh of relief. Yang Li was closest to the bags, and his face turned pale from the smoke, and he stepped back repeatedly. Chu's Icy suddenly said, Uncle and Aunt Ruin actually has a very funny nickname in the class. Mom smiled. Oh? Chu Si said lightly and quickly, bitch. The atmosphere froze. She smiled at my parents, but my parents and my brother did not show any reaction she wanted at all. They looked at Chu Sisi very calmly, and even the smile on their mouths did not fade a bit. Mom seemed to have heard something funny and laughed softly. If we use the word cute puppy to describe Ruin, it's quite appropriate, Dad said cheerfully. Chu Sisi couldn't hold back the smile on her face. Zhu Ran and Yang Li looked at my parents as if they were idiots. Zhu Ran whispered in my ear, Are your parents mentally retarded? Can't they understand such an obvious hint? His voice was loud enough for everyone to hear clearly, but my parents still seemed not to hear it. Zhu Ran took a big sip of coffee unhappily, and suddenly his expression became a little strange. Zhu Ran spit out something, and his eyes suddenly widened. What is this? How can there be a human finger? Zhu Ran shouted in horror, but everyone around him frowned and looked at him. Fingers? This is a human finger, Zhang Ruan. Your parents killed someone. Zhu Ran was so scared that he spoke incoherently. Zhu Ran, calm down and take a closer look at what you spit out. I said calmly. Zhu Ran panted heavily, mustered up the courage to take another look, his face pale. How could it be? How could it become a sugar cube? I just saw a finger. What finger? Have you watched too many horror movies? Yang Li sneered. I looked up coldly outside the window. There was a patch of unusually bright flowers. It is said that as long as this flower is ground into juice and added to food, it can cause hallucinations. Soon it was Yang calmed down for a long time. But soon it was Yang Li's turn to be wrong. He looked in the direction of the plastic bag frequently and said nervously, Did you hear any sound? It came from the plastic bag, rustling all the time. Is there a mouse in it? Chu Sisi frowned. What are you talking about? You didn't hear it. Yang Li jumped up from the sofa at once, his face ugly. It was sparse and noisy all the time. I thought so. How could I not hear it? Suddenly, the expression on her face froze, and Yang Li seemed to have seen something extremely terrifying, and a nearly broken whimper came out of her throat. I have never seen such a scared expression on his face, and I couldn't help but feel a little curious. What did Yang Li see? The next second, a fishy liquid flowed out from her lower body. Chu Sisians or Ran screamed, Yang Li, are you sick? But Yang Li seemed not to hear it. He stared at the plastic bag, crawled out. The woman crawled out from inside. Didn't you see it crawled out? And my parents and brother, the smiles on their faces bloomed to the maximum at this moment. Duran was the first one who couldn't stand it. He cried and said he wanted to go home. It's so weird here. I want to go home. Although Chu Sisi didn't see anything, he frowned and obviously felt something was wrong. Let's go. When he stood up, picked up his bag and prepared to leave, he suddenly stared at me again. Impossible. Chu Si's face turned pale at a speed visible to the naked eye. He looked at me as if he had lost his soul, muttering, You are obviously dead. Chen Tong is dead. I knew that Chu Sisi was also beginning to have hallucinations. I had heard of the name Chen Tong. Before I transferred here, it was Chen Tong who was bullied by Chu Sisi and his friends. It is said that he finally couldn't bear it and jumped off the roof of the school. Chen Tong's death was quickly settled without any impact. Hearing Chu Sisi shouting this name, Zhu Ran dragged Chu Sisi to the door like crazy. But soon the expressions on their faces were replaced by fear. There were 8 locks on the door tightly. My brother stood in front of the door, smiling at them. How can the guests leave before they have fun? Their killing is about to begin. I curled up in the sofa, my body shaking uncontrollably. Chu Cece and the other two fainted, and when they woke up, they were tied up tightly. I stood behind my parents and brother, feeling nervous and complicated. Hey, are you crazy? Why are you tying us up? After Yang Li regained consciousness, he struggled hard, but he soon realized that these seemingly thin ropes were extremely tight. The more he struggled, the tighter the ropes tied him. What are you doing? Why are you tying us up? Although Chu Si's face was very pale, he was the calmest among the three. I advise you to let me go quickly. Otherwise, my father will never let you go, Chu Sisi said coldly. The brother tilted his head slightly, walked in front of Chu Sisi, and squatted down. Chu Sisi's chest was heaving violently, and I saw the uncontrollable fear on her face. Dad and brother laughed low in their throats. Are you talking about the father? You mean him? The brother took out his mobile phone, which showed a surveillance picture. A man was naked, his hands and feet were tied, and he was hanging upside down. He kept struggling and making fearful whimpers. Are you saying that this fat pig-like thing is your father? Chu Cece could no longer maintain her composure on her face. She shouted angrily, "Let my father go quickly, you lunatic! I heard that your father was a butcher before you became an official. The pork he slaughtered is much more delicious than others. Cece, do you know how he killed it?" Cece's face was pale. Other people kill pigs with a single knife, but your father doesn't like to do that. He likes to torture pigs. When the pigs are still conscious, he cuts off their limbs and slowly peels off their skin. He thinks the meat of the pig after it dies in extreme pain is the most delicious. Cece panted, his chest heaving violently and his body trembling. What do you want? Chu Cece gritted his teeth and said in fear, Cece, I'm going to give you a chance to live, okay? My brother's voice was extremely gentle. Your father and you can either live or one of them, and now I give you the right to choose. Zhu Ran cried and yelled, You want to kill us? Murder's illegal. You will be sentenced to death. Yang Li also yelled helplessly. Let him go. Mom stroked my head lovingly. Are you scared? So pitiful. But we can't let you go when you bullied my Ruin. He must have been scared too, right? I'm sorry, Ruin. Let me go. And I'll pretend nothing happened. I won't bully you anymore, and I'll listen to you whatever you say. The tall and strong Yang Li, who could hit me so hard that my nose bleeds with one hand, also showed me a humble and pleading expression at this moment. Me too. Please, Ruin. I will be your slave in the future, and I will never be a Chuskisi again. I stared at them blankly, and at this moment I just felt a little noisy. Dad looked at me lovingly. Ruin, what do you say we should do? Mom also turned her head to look at me at this moment. I clenched my palms tightly, as if only the pain could calm me down. What should I say? What should I do? At this moment, my heart was beating violently. After a long silence, I heard myself whispering, It's up to you to decide. The faces of the three of them lost the last bit of blood. At this moment, it turns out that the faces of living people sometimes become so similar to corpses. Father Cece, my patience is almost exhausted. I will only give you 3 seconds. 321. Chu Cece's face flashed with pain and hideances, and finally she gritted her teeth and said fiercely, I will live on my own. A smile appeared on my brother's face. Then, it's as you wish. In the surveillance video, a huge electric gear appeared under the man. The next second, accompanied by the man's pig, killing scream, blood and flesh flew everywhere. The man was sawed in half alive. Chu Cece screamed and burst into tears. I looked at her quietly. Zuran was so scared that she had incontinence, and her whole body was shaking like a sieve. Yang Li's face was pale, and she was so scared that she couldn't speak. They didn't expect that my brother really did it. He killed a person in such a cruel way, but the expression on his face did not change at all. My dad is dead, so can you let me go? Brother, please let me go. I can do anything you want me to do for you. Chu Cece begged. I did do something excessive to Ruan. I will change in the future. We are not yet adults. We are still children. I will listen to Ruan in the future, okay? Chu Cece pleaded sadly. My brother lowered his head and looked at him with pity. Do you believe what the madman said? I have read Ruin's diary. I stammered, but finally said nothing. Ruin said that he also begged you to let him go. He is very kind and he can't bear to watch anyone die for him. Obviously, he gave you so many chances to live, but you still refused to let him go. Now the chances are all used up by you. What do you think is Ruin's nickname in the class? Yes, it's a bitch. Let me show you what a real bitch looks like, okay? My brother turned his head and stared at me with dark eyes. Memories mixed with blood surged into my heart, and my hands couldn't help shaking because of extreme nervousness. I knew what he wanted to do, and I shuddered violently, and the temperature around me seemed to become extremely wet and cold. Mom sighed, okay, don't ask Ruin anymore. You know that Ruin is very soft-hearted. After Trusisi knew that her brother would never let her go, she cursed us with almost the most unpleasant and vicious words in the world. Her brother didn't care at all. Instead, he gestured at Chusi's calves very seriously. The legs are too long. A dog's legs are very short, right? A lot of them need to be sawed off. The hands are too long. Chusisi was finally swallowed up by despair. She suddenly remembered that before getting in the car, the man stared at her legs. It turned out that she wanted to turn him into a dog at that time. Ruin, the next scene will be very bloody. I know you don't like it. My brother grinned. Mom took my hand. Ruin, let's go downstairs and leave the dirty work to the men. Don't go. Please save me, Ruan. You can't just watch us die. I'm sorry. We were wrong. Save us. The three people were Ryan begging me to save them. I numbly looked at the three faces that were so arrogant in the past. I murmured, overwhelmed lie, obviously. I have said it. You can treat me however you want. Just don't come to my house. I have emphasized it many times. Finally, I turned my head and followed my mother out of the room. The door slowly closed in front of me. What I couldn't see was their extremely desperate eyes, just like every person I had seen before who was killed. There were shrill screams from inside the door, but my family has taken many sound-proofing measures, so there is no need to worry about the neighbors hearing them. Obviously, I'm used to it, but the great fear and the torture of conscience still made me burst into tears. I buried myself in my mother's arms and sobbed in suppression. My mother stroked my hair again and again, and it took a long time before she spoke softly. After crying for a long time, you looked up and stammered, Mom, will I be killed by you like this one day? I heard it all that day. I am not your biological child. Mom looked at me in surprise, then laughed. Are you talking about what you heard your dad and I say when you were 8 years old? Silly boy, why do you think you are not our biological child? Will never lied to you. You are the baby I gave birth to after 10 months of pregnancy. I shook my head in disbelief, but Mom sighed slightly. I didn't want to tell you this, but now you have grown up, and you have the right to know the truth. In fact, your brother is the child we picked up. We thought he was a normal child, but the child's temperament is more and more like us. To be precise, he is born with an antisocial personality. We are worried that he will harm you, so we have been hesitating whether to get rid of him. But your brother, he really loves you. I groaned in a muffled voice and clutched my mother's clothes tightly. The screams upstairs stopped abruptly, and the door was slowly pushed open. My brother was standing on the second floor, and I looked up at his face, a face that was covered in blood, but still handsome like a god. He seemed to be afraid that I would be scared, and hurriedly wiped the blood off his face, but he didn't know that, in fact, My name is Ruan, and both of my parents are born with antisocial personalities. I did not escape. I also inherited this personality, but I know how to hide myself better. When I was 8 years old, I knew that my brother was picked up by my parents. The teacher said that when I knew the truth, I was extremely fortunate. In my heart. I like my brother, the kind of love that makes me want to eat him up, sew him into my body, and never separate him forever. In order to let my brother protect me, I tried to pretend to be an innocent little white flower. Every time he sneaked into my room late at night to spy on me, I couldn't help but tremble, not because of fear, but because of excitement. I love my family very much, but they are sometimes very naive. I don't know if I should say this. They like to kill people, but they are often negligent. The day my brother killed the two boys, I cleaned up the scene for him. My father has not been caught for killing people for so many years, and I have been diligently cleaning up his ass. As for me, even if I have a hard life and have to constantly clean up for them, I still love my parents and my brother the most. Don't modify the article because they don't know that I am the most normal one in the family and the one who knows how to play the victim in the sun. After all, even I almost forget every time I witness the desperate eyes of the prey, my fingertips hidden under my sleeves are trembling or curled up with excitement.